Stage 4 of the Giro D'Italia would take the riders away from Piemonte into Liguria and to the coastline. Thankfully, it was a little more sunny where the riders were headed. It was a rainy, cloudy start in Acquiterme. The last time a Giro D'Italia stage had started there was 1955. It had been a while. The first ever finish in Andora on the coast, and to get there they'd go through Calizzano for a sprint over the Colle del Melogno, into an intermediate sprint and an intergiro, and once on the coast at Savona would follow the Milano-Sanremo route over Alassio, Laigueglia, the Capomele, and then finishing just after the first of the Tre Capi that we normally see in the Classicissima. Flashes of spring as we move towards summer, not quite getting to Sanremo. Bram Velten would be a non-starter. 172 riders left in the Giro D'Italia. And the first attacker would be Fran Munoz, a 22-year-old, on Grand Tour debut for Polti Cometa. He'd soon be followed by Lilian Carmerchan and Stefan de Bod. Looked as though 3 riders were away, and then there would be a fourth. A headline name. Yes, Filippo Ganna sent up the road. But with his presence, they were never going to be allowed too much time, were they? Soudal-QuickStep set about going to work. 1 minute 20 was the biggest advantage they got. That after Peter Seri had tried to keep them in check. Tadej Pogacar was in conversation. And then the conversation at the front. Ganna saying his goodbyes. Back to the peloton. A little laugh and a joke with Seri. He'd won the first battle of the day, and 3 riders were then allowed to get a much bigger gap. They'd be on their way to taking a maximum gap of over 5 minutes. By the time they got to the first sprint, it would be Caden Groves who'd get the majority of the points behind. And then on to the Colle del Melogno. This is where Visma Lease Bike awoke from their slumber, starting to drop quite a few of the sprinters, including Fabio Jakobsen. UAE wanted to keep Tadej Pogacar at the front for the descent that was about to happen. And it'd be a furious chase on the descent as the raindrops started to fall. Still plenty of victims behind. Olav Koy was obviously feeling good. An intergiro halfway down the descent saw this happen. Maximum points and the bonus seconds going to Fran Munoz. But then a moment that would mark the day. A crash involving Biniam Girmay, Ben O'Connor and many others, but it was Girmay who was worst off. He'd then get back on his bike amazingly, but just a couple of kilometres later, on a spare bike with tyres full of pressure, he'd crash on his other side. I'm afraid this time, Biniam Girmay, former stage winner, would have to abandon the Giro D'Italia. Up ahead, on the coast, and with 1 sprinter down. A couple of splits on the descent, riders having to work hard to get back on. Lidl Trek continued to ride, as did Visma Lease Bike and Soudal-QuickStep. There would be contact at the back, only coming just inside the final 50 kilometres. Breakaway by this time was down to 2. Munoz was still there, and he was accompanied by de Bod, the South African from EF Education Easy Post. They still had 2 minutes with 40 k's to go, but there was so much firepower behind and a big will to have another bunch sprint. One by one the towns passed. Familiar to those used to watching in the spring. Was La Classicissima going to produce a classic? Inside the final 15 kilometres, it became clear that the break was going to be caught. 24 seconds with 10 k's to go. GC teams fighting it with sprint teams, and just at the bottom of the Capomele, de Bod the last survivor, and they'd be caught. Then an attack. Ganna going again. On the uphill up the Capomele, if he'd get to the top with a decent gap, with a downhill only stopping in the final 800 metres, the stage could be his. They'd get excited behind as well. Pasqualon trying to chase. Also there too was Fiorelli. Over the top he went 7 seconds, but that turned to 5. Big chain rings, big power behind, and a massive chase. Ganna going into the final kilometre still ahead, but it was at around 400 to 500 metres from the line he'd be caught. Consonni, his track teammate for Italy, doing the catching, and it'd be another man in the big team pursuit for the Italians to hit the front in the sprint. Jonathan Milan, Ciclamino winner the year before, second the day before, and a year to the day since his first Giro d'Italia stage win, taking victory just about ahead of Groves and the rest. Magnificent from Milan. A furious sprint, massive power numbers. It was Milan, Groves, Bauhaus. Honourable mention though to Merlier, who came from a long way back to finish 5th. Ballerini, Gaviria, Zanoncello, Michels and Lonardi in the top 10, and a good placing for Olav Koy, who remember is still on Grand Tour debut. The Maglia Rosa remaining on the back of Tadej Pogačar. The only change in the general classification at the top being a move up for Kian Uijtdebroeks. He took 1 bonus second throughout the day and moved from 5th to 4th. He's at 55 seconds. The next stage could again be one for the sprinters, but once more it is not guaranteed. Starting in Genoa, the city of the lantern, and heading over to Lucca, the walled city in Tuscany. Again the sprints, once more an Intergiro, and a final climb 20 kilometres from the line, perhaps posing another problem to the sprinters. 178 Ks for stage 5.